Hello, I'm Miss Megan with Learn, and today we are going to learn how to write poetry. So for this lesson, all you need is a pencil, a piece of paper, and crayons or markers if you have them. Let's begin by listening to a poem. See if you can hear all of the descriptive words that the poet, the writer of the poem, uses. This poem is called April Rain Song by Langston Hughes. Let the rain kiss you. Let the rain beat upon your head with silver liquid drops. Let the rain sing you a lullaby. The rain makes still pools on the sidewalk. The rain makes running pools in the gutter. The rain plays a little sleep song on our roof at night, and I love the rain. Poetry uses a lot of describing words to help get feelings across to the person who's reading the poem. Let's practice describing what we see. This is an image from one of our school gardens of cherry tomatoes. What do you notice? I see tomatoes that are round. I can imagine that they're pretty juicy. I see a lot of different colors. What colors do you notice? Do you notice the weather in this picture? Does it look like it's rainy and gloomy or bright and sunny? That was great practice. Nice job. Now, to move forward, we need to practice using all 5 senses. A lot of poetry describes not just with what you see, but also with the other senses. Do you know what our 5 senses are? We have our sense of hearing, our sense of touch, our sense of smell, our sense of sight, and my personal favorite, our sense of taste. Let's try to use a few of our senses to observe and describe this Mexican sunflower. What can you see? What do you imagine it feels like to touch? I imagine those petals would feel soft and smooth. Can you use your imagination to think of a smell for this flower? This is a type of sunflower, so although the flower itself is not edible, can you imagine what it tastes like to eat sunflower seeds? To crunch them between your teeth? This flower doesn't make any noises by itself, but it does have a friend drinking nectar that might make a noise. What sort of sound would that bee be making? I think we're ready. We're going to create a simple 5 senses poem all about one of our favorite garden friends, a worm. So pause this video while you gather your materials. You're going to need a pencil, a piece of paper, and crayons or markers if you have them. Our poem is going to be about a worm that lives in a garden. The first thing we need to do for our poem is to set up our page. So I want you to start down a little ways because we will add a title at the very end. And the first thing I want you to write using your pencil is I taste. That's just the beginning of a sentence. You're going to finish that thought later as we start thinking creatively about our poem. Right now, we're just doing the setup. Once you have your I taste written, skip a few spaces and write I touch. And you're going to keep doing this for all 5 senses. I smell, I hear, and our last part is going to be a little bit longer of a sentence. I see the worm. And again, we will finish all these sentences as we work together. So for now, pause the video if you need, and get your page set up like mine. Have you ever seen a worm before? Or maybe held one in your hand and felt it wiggle around? If so, you can use that knowledge to help you create your poem. But if not, no worries. I have a video that I created from one of our gardens to help us get inspiration. As you're observing this worm move through the soil, think about some describing words that you could use in your poem. Now we need to come up with one word that matches each of our 5 senses. Let's start with our sense of taste. Now you might be thinking, ew, we don't eat worms. How am I supposed to know what a worm tastes like? The fun of creating poems is that you have to get creative. So let's pretend that we are a bird flying through the garden and we see a wriggling worm, we dive down and we grab it and we eat it. What do you think it would taste like for a bird to eat a worm? See if you can come up with at least one word. Once you have thought of a word to describe how a worm tastes, you're going to add that to the first sentence of our poem. I taste. That is where you will add your word. If you want to add more than one word, you're welcome to do so. Next, let's describe our sense of touch. Have any of you touched a worm before? What do you think it would feel like to hold a worm in your hand? Try to think of one describing word to add to your poem. Just like we did for our sense of taste, you're going to add your word to describe what it would feel like to touch a worm after where we started our sentence for I touch. Now we're moving on to our sense of smell. I'm not sure that any of us have smelled a worm before, but it's time to get creative. Use your imagination. Try to think of one describing word for how you think a worm would smell. I'm sure you know what to do next. You're going to add your describing word for what a worm smells like to the space next to our sentence that we started for I smell. Next is our sense of hearing. Can you think of one word to describe what it would sound like for a worm to be wiggling through the soil? When you're ready, you can add your describing word for what a worm sounds like next to our sentence, I hear. For this sentence, we are going to add a second thought. We're also going to add the actual sound we think the worm makes. So for example, if you think the worm sounds like ricka, 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 you're going to come up with what letters would make that noise. Ricka, 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 ricka. Or maybe you think it sounds like shk, 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 shk. Shk, 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 shk. It's up to you to come up with a creative description for the noise that you think the word would make. Finally, we're going to take another look at our video and come up with some words for what we see. or sense of sight? I see the worm. It's up to you to finish that sentence. What do you see the worm doing? I'm sure you don't even need my instructions anymore, but just in case, here we go. You're going to finish that final sentence, I see the worm. You're going to finish it right here. To finish up our poem, think of a creative title and draw an illustration or picture that goes along with the words that you used. I would love to share mine with you. Here's what I created. A Wandering Worm by Miss Megan. I taste goopy. I touch wetness. I smell fresh rain. I hear scratching. Shk, shk, shk. I see the worm wiggling and waggling through the spring soil. Once your poem is finished, I encourage you to do what I just did, share your poem with others. You just worked really hard on that, and you should take pride in your work. If you enjoyed creating this poem today, I encourage you to keep making more poems. You can open up a window and take a look outside to get inspiration. You could go for a walk with an adult and create a poem about your experience. You could even write a poem about what it's like to be your favorite toy. The really fun thing about poetry is it's a way for you to get creative and express yourself. And you can do that in so many different ways. Nice job today, poet. I had a lot of fun working with you, and I can't wait to learn with you again soon. Bye for now.